let's get going. First thing, we're going to review a little bit, okay, just to get our heads back in what we've learned in the last 3 classes. And then we're going to kind of talk over why tracking is important. Okay, so the purpose of today's thing is how do you build in tracking devices, data that you collect, you know, how you can be creative about tracking things, all that stuff. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about why you should track in the first place, how you can build it into the things that you're doing, and I'm going to kind of do complex. Okay, and then we'll talk about what stuff means, and then determining when you can see what stuff means, you tell your customer to get them to move forward and do something else, and then we'll wrap up with communicating that to the. All right. So here's our track for the day, which I'm not going to go over, but it's in your book. Okay. So we've had a previous workshop on the cross-channel opportunity, building a winning campaign, how to sell, and today we're working on the ROI. Okay. You guys saw, those of you that were here yesterday's session, which is pretty much everybody but you. You know, the world is changing. We're in a disruptive world, okay? So analog print has transitioned to digital print, and now even digital print is getting transitioned to digital marketing. And when you have a cycle like that, there's tons of innovation. And so, you know, somebody innovates something, and then someone comes along behind it and comes up with something new. So there's just a lot of change and a lot of disruption. And that's affecting the way people spend their marketing dollars. And we've talked about this numerous times before. They have to spread it out across those other channels, so it's moving away from print to things like mobile and online and those things, which it means if you don't evolve with that, what's going to happen? Yeah. Okay, you're going to be. Yes, sir. Well, right now we're in this cycle. There's the Austrian, and I'll look it up and tell you if you want to read more about it. It's in my notes, but this Austrian economist that coined the phrase for this movement. What ends up happening is you can't innovate like that continuously, okay? Because, so you're going to see this flurry of activity. How long? I don't know. You know, because when you look back over this, you know, historians come back 1,000 years from now, what seems like it's going on for a long time to us is going to be a blip. So, you know, it's hard to say, is that 5 years, is it 10 years, is it 2 years, you know, I don't know. But my logic tells me that as we've, you know, developed more technology and that kind of thing, that the periods of this disruption will be longer, but then you always get to like a plateau, and then people kind of ride the wave for a little while until you bump up again. I don't have any idea when, though, okay? So the big takeaways, though, for us are print is, that money that's spent on print is being distributed across today. So I kind of roll with those punches. It's change, and what's interesting is channels change. You know, so like everyone's getting email open rates are down, click-through rates are down because there's so much email. So what else can I do? And then so now they're all on something else. So channels change. You heard Selena say yesterday, now it's Instagram and Snapchat, and they even tweet now. Twitter originally was the target audience was 35 to 54. And when it first started, it was all a bunch of business people. Now the kids are like, Mom told me to pick up my socks, hashtag never gonna happen. It's all. But what's interesting about that is channels change. You know, so that's why you want, circles back to the analytics, you want to watch what's happening. Because email will dry up, people stop looking at it, they get immune to it. And what's the best way to wake somebody up? They've fallen asleep, they're not opening your digital channels anymore. Print. Print's the best way to resuscitate it, okay? So you want to be watching those channels and be like, okay, they used to open your emails all the time, but there's so much traffic there, they're kind of immune. Let's use some print, wake them back up again. Now I want to transition them back to digital for a lot of reasons. Why? If I'm a marketer and I got it working on, you know, print, and I got you back in the cycle and you're interacting with me, why would I ever go away from that? So it's cheaper and it's easier for the customer, the prospect, to react. Okay? I always have it with print, I have a distraction. Kitchen. You can minimize with digital channels. You know, right now, you know, I take some of that distraction away. Move you into those digital channels. The point of it is, that's why tracking is critical, because people change. Okay, people's patterns change. I got a new job and now I don't look at email the way I used to. You know, all things like that can affect the way someone is responding to the messaging that you're sending. Okay, the other thing we talked about this yesterday is, you know, there's not a lot of pricing power on the print side. There's a lot of competition, hard to hold your prices, a lot about price. And we talked about that yesterday, where people, like, you know, they just want an email quote. You know, how do I not just respond to what they're asking me, which is send it an email? I mean, what does that tell you? I got 3 people sending me a quote, like, you're not there with your sparkling face to kind of say, I think you're thinking about this wrong. Let's look at what this could mean for you. They're looking at it. 3 emails, what's my best price? They're going with that. It is, okay? So that's why I told you yesterday, you know, if you avoid pain, or you're trying to upsell someone from just a plain old sign to a sign with a QR code with, you know, interaction capabilities, you don't want to email that, because I can guarantee you they're not going to read the words that you put in there trying to sell it. They're going to zap down to the price and make a decision. Okay, so that's the key point on this slide is value of print, not a lot of pricing power. The pricing power that you have is on the value-added services side. And for those that were there yesterday, I think I have a slide on that. So here's the growth opportunities. The light purple up at the top is value-added services, stuff like design, stuff like, you know, programming, stuff like data work, stuff like, you know, strategy and analytics and things like that. Wide format, which is the next biggest growth area. Okay, but the same, I am here to tell you, the same exact thing will happen with wide format. Okay, because we show this slide 3,000 times a year. And all the people in the audience go, I gotta get it, I gotta make more money, I gotta find some things where there's still margin. Oh, I'll do wide format. And if you all go over there and do wide format without adding the value back in, 3 years from now, we're all standing here talking about how low the margins are on wide format. Okay, so don't fall into that trap. Use it as a bridge to combine some of those good things. Okay, does that make sense? The fastest growing applications, we covered this in the first session that we did. Books, okay. Anybody doing self-publishing books? Okay. Like you saw, those of you that were here and saw Barry and Sharon's book, she wrote a book, okay. Now I'm sure that doesn't have 100,000 run distribution. Okay, the fastest growing segment of the book market is self-publishing. Okay, so that's an opportunity for pretty much anybody. Okay, so I got a black and white book with some color covers and stuff like that. That's an opportunity, and everyone, there's a statistic that they studied, I can't remember who, but they asked like a general cross-section of the population, you know, would you ever write a book? And 80% of Americans said yes. Okay, now is 80%? No, they're not going to write a book, but 80% of the people think I've got a book in them. Okay, David, writer, I'm sure have you ever written a book? You're in the process? I mean, I wrote a book, it's short, okay? I haven't published it, I'm still sitting on it. But my point is, there's millions of people like that. Okay, so if you, and the way the technology is today, there's opportunity there, okay? We're on cross-channel marketing, you know, there is opportunity with that, okay? if you have a kind of client base where they have expertise or they're writing books. Direct mail is the big one for you guys, okay? And that's a growth market. Trans-promo is the next one probably for you guys. And then the first week, who brochures are back? Why did brochures get? Everything's an online web thing. Cycled back. Reason that it went to online was what? Cheaper, but what were some of the other reasons? I think there was cost associated, with that. You're exactly right. Anything else? Shelf life. Shelf life. Okay, so go back to that first slide. The world is changing so fast that if I print a brochure and sit on it for 12 months, what's in that brochure is probably not accurate. Okay, so I have to get rid of it, or I use it and it's not accurate. And we talked about this the first session. Does anybody had a situation where they're using something, someone's given them, a business has given them something that is out of date, and they're using it to make decisions or to interact? Anybody been to a doctor's office? They hand you a 2-page form. They're like, don't worry about the backside. Okay? Okay, anybody spent 15 minutes in the doctor's office reading through your cards and your cell phone trying to fill out that information? And then you get up there and they're like, oh, you need that? Okay, how happy are you? Okay, so that's why it went away, because it's like stuff's changing, I don't need it, I'll put it online, I can change it faster. Okay, but here's where the tracking kind of comes full circle. I can extend the shelf life of that brochure today. How can I do that? Right. Okay, so I can print in smaller quantities so I don't get the waste. That's a good thing. The other thing is I can put a QR code in there. I can put a unique website that is tied specifically to that brochure. I can use augmented reality to make it interactive. Okay, QR codes, augmented reality, and NFCs. Remember we talked about the little chips. Okay, you can make it interactive that way. So the reason the brochures are coming back is, I can get the tactileness of print. Okay, I can print it in small, quantities, so I don't have that chaos with having to throw junk away and warehouse it and have it get old. And I can link it to current content. So that's why brochures are coming back. Okay. Now, what does that mean from a selling point, Mr. David? Okay. These service tumblers. Sure, nothing. No connectivity in it. What are you going to do?
To connect it to your website.
Okay, what's
the goal?
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, got it. Okay, so I say the purpose of the brochure is just something. Okay, so somebody give me the next question. You guys over here. So I know they want to sell something with this brochure. What's another good question? Remember we're talking about tracking. Okay. So you want to sell something, what's another good question? Okay, that's good. We talked about that yesterday. That's good. What? What are the competitors? Okay, another good question. Okay.
Other parts of that become dated or are dated.
Okay, good question. Great question. Anybody else? Okay, that's a good question. Who's your target? Anything else? How about, do you know if it works? Okay, that's the second question. What is it for? I got to sell something. Do you know if it works?
Have you used it before?
Yeah, well, they're going to say, how do you know if a brochure works? But you can tell, can't you? How would we tell? Well, we put something in there that we can tell if people are interacting with it. Yeah. Then all of a sudden I know, hey, you know what? People are looking at this brochure. And guess what? There's a link to a video on page 2 of it, and they really like that. Okay? So that's how you move to, let's talk about a way to give you the knowledge if the brochure is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Okay? So what's it for? sell stuff. How do you know if it works? Don't have any idea. Would it help you if you did know? Would it help you if you could tell which parts of it people pay most attention to? Yeah, that'd be great, Kate. I might have a way. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so we also talked about the fact that this process has changed, and we spent a lot of time on this for those of you that were after. This is where you shine, okay? 60% of the purchasing process today is done without the salespeople. That's why they're asking you to email quotes. I know you can do it. I've put it down. Give me to change that cycle is to share something with them that they can't get anywhere else. What is that? They can't get service anywhere else. What? Expertise. Okay? Your insight, your knowledge, what you know about running a business, what you've watched other clients do for the last gazillion years, what you've seen work and not work, that is the piece of information they don't have. And when they go to everybody's website, look at your competitor's website, everybody's going to say, we do wide format, we can do direct mail, we can print in all kinds of colors, we're wonderful. They all say basically the same stuff. $20 million printer or a $300,000 printer, I can do pretty much anything that you want. Whether I outsource it or I do it myself. Okay, so they're going to go on the web, they're going to say who can do it, they're going to call you up and ask for a price unless you stop that cycle. Which means you've got to talk to them about stuff they can't read on a website, and that's what's in your head. Does that make sense? Okay. And that's that stuff about value. So for those of you that were in class yesterday, the reason conversations end up in price is why? When you're talking to a customer and it ends up all about the price, how did you get there? Because they asked you about it and you went there with them. Okay? The only way to stop that is, and you've got the expertise, okay? All of you in this room have this, and for 2 years we've been talking about it. Mr. Customer, we could talk about price. I own a business, and I am always worried about price myself, but I think you're missing the bigger picture. Because let's look at some of this stuff. Go back to the vet thing. Is he here? Yes. Go back to the vet thing. What's a patient worth? You're looking at the cost of this interactive brochure or the cost of this campaign, and you're saying, I can't afford it. I think you need to flip that. What happens if you don't do it? What happens if you do a standard brochure and you're sending the stuff out that no one cares to read and you don't know it? Then what happens? You don't get customers. Isn't it important to get customers than to worry about the $2,500, $5,000, whatever it is? And we talked about that yesterday with that. Over the course of a lifetime is worth considerably more than $5,000. Okay, so that we got to take them away from you're looking at price and make you think about value. Is that everybody with me? Okay. So the other things are brand protection. We talked about that yesterday. Money, pretty logos and brand and graphic standards and all that, and then they let idiot sales reps build stuff in Publisher and hand it out to customers. What did I do when that happens? Threw $50,000 out the window. Okay, so this isn't a conversation about whether or not you want to pay me to put this document up online. This is a conversation about whether you're going to get the value of the $50,000 you already spent, or $10,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is. Does that make sense? Reduction in inventory costs. That's a good one. Who remembers yesterday? For every dollar that someone spends with you producing something, what is it costing them on the inside to do that? $6 to $14. So that's your reduction in inventory cost is in that 6 to 14. Increased average order size. We know that relevancy and making it current and relevant to a customer increases their willingness to buy and increases how much they spend. Okay, so let's go back to the nonprofit side. Okay, so if I could take this average donation from $50 to $100, what's that worth to you? How many donors do you have? You have, 4,000 donors times $48. That's a lot of money. So who cares about the extra $300 I'm trying to charge you? Okay, but the point is from yesterday is you have to know that. If you can't change, say, hey, I think we need to talk about something else. This is not the way you should be thinking. They're going to go to price. Because they're just thinking, hey, anybody can do this for me. I just need a price. Right? You can do that. All right, and what's the other? Enhanced supported dealer channel for like a manufacturing environment. That's your web to print message. Because you let the dealers customize their materials so they can sell more. And they can maintain the brand. And then the last one is increased lifetime value of the customer. So I'm not increasing the gift from $2 to $100 once. What am I doing? Okay, so that's when somebody said, how long do you have the customer was one of the good questions. Because to make that calculation, how long do you typically keep donors? We keep donors for 20 years, so that's 20 years times $48. That's a lot of money, times 4,000 donors. It's a lot of money. So now it is not a $2,500 conversation or a $5,000 conversation. Does that make sense? Okay. Variable data, we talked about this. 62.4% of marketers already do personalized stuff or versioned stuff. Who can tell me the difference? Versioned.
Yeah, the name on it. Version would be the kind of car you looked at in the showroom, pictured on these.
Okay. Okay. All right. So not have a targeted to the characteristics of this segment. Make sense? Right? Think of your own businesses. Hilda comes in to get the party invitations for her wedding anniversary, the needs as the bank down the street that comes in.
I'm dealing with a nonprofit right now that's doing one newsletter that goes to both prospective donors and program participants, two totally separate groups. And encouraging them to split those into two different channels of communication.
You need some statistics to back that up, which we have gone over in the last class. That's two different things. If I am already a donor, I need to stewardship that gift, make you understand what it does, how it could help, why you're valuable. If you're new, I got to convince you that we're worthy. It's two messages. Okay, and if you think someone's going to sit there and read a 4-page brochure wall to wall to figure that out, they're not doing it. So a good question is, okay, Mr. Customer, I give you a brochure about my business, and we have all kinds of different customers, and there's a paragraph on the 3rd page about how we can help nonprofits. You reading the whole thing? No, I'm probably not. Well, do you think your customers are reading the whole brochure to understand the difference between a donor and a non-donor? Yeah, probably not. Okay, so that's the questions are key because it makes you think. And what did we learn yesterday? I think it's number 6 on what good salespeople do. Remember that? We need to get you a copy of that. Oh, good. Okay. What can a good salesperson do that a bad salesperson can't do? Be quiet. Okay, because everybody gets anxious with that silence. Okay, but what's the customer doing when it's silent? Thinking. Okay, so you've got to be able to say, are you going to read the 3 pages and find the 1 paragraph, or the 4 pages and find the 1 paragraph that's relevant to you? And you got to sit there. Yeah, probably not going to. Okay, then you got to say, okay, well, do you think your prospects are going to understand from the communication that's basically talking to donors why they should become a prospect? And then be quiet. Okay? Does that make sense? Silence is like a wonderful thing because it makes people think. Okay, 47% of all documents today have some kind of digital link to them, and the average number of channels per campaign is 3. Okay, so we talked about this yesterday. If you're getting the print and they're doing 2 other channels, what are you doing? Leaving money on the table. Remember, we didn't like to do that. That's why we all added mailing. Why should I print it and give it to somebody else to mail? I'll add mailing and I won't leave money on the table, right? It's the same logic. Okay, and here is always going to be your go-to. Are the top priorities for most businesses? Customers, sell more stuff to our customers. Number 4 on the list is do this cost effectively. Okay? So if you talk to these people about, you find prospects, how do you get them to buy, how do you sell more stuff to them, and how do you keep them? Great question. Does that make sense? Okay, and we know the whole cross-channel personalization relevancy works because there's what happens when you add channels. You go from print only at 6% response to all those other channels up to 8.7. Okay? And that could be a lot. If that's a $20,000 or 20,000 record donor base, that difference from 6 to 8.7 is a lot of people. Okay, and then we talked about the iceberg because that's the money under the waterline. Okay, now horizontal markets. We talked in one of the sessions about how important it is to you get focused. Okay, because it's hard to be on your toes with everything that can be thrown at you. So one of the ways to kind of get your traction and get settled is to pick a market or a couple markets maybe. But stay there. Like, don't be flitting from nonprofit to manufacturing to banking to Aunt Hilda to schools to whatever. It's hard to be an expert in all those places. So the horizontal markets, okay, which is I call across industry, but I'm focused on a specific type of need. So those typically like marketing departments. I focus on marketing departments, and the size of the marketing departments might be how you cut that down a little bit. Small and medium-sized businesses, which is where I'd go, because you know that like the back of your hand.
By your definition, where are you putting the criteria?
What do you mean?
A lot of different things. So where do you?
On what the size of the business?
Yeah.
I mean, there's rules. I think that varies. Okay, technically I forget what the government description is, but it's like a huge business that. Yeah, or something like that. And we have tons of businesses that are much lower than. Really, what works for you? So look at yours, and by best I mean most profitable. Be like, hey, what's the characteristics of these folks? Hey, we do really well when it's like a 10-person company or a 15-person company or a 50-person company. Like, we seem to be able to fill a lot of their needs and do it pretty profitably. Well, then they're fit. I want to look for other 50,000 or 50 employee companies. If that's 250 and that works for you, then find more that are 250. Okay, so that's going to be.
I like working with companies where you can work with the CEO.
Yeah.
Because they are decision makers and they can find the money.
And aren't they a heck of a lot easier than those like people trying to be important lower down in the organization?
They roadblock too often.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like they're more real, because you can have a conversation with them like, hey, doesn't it matter about, if you get this customer or not? Yeah, it really does. Where somebody like at that mid-level is like, they told me not to spend any more money than this, and I'm going to do it.
I didn't what they told me to do, so I'm not open to it.
Exactly. So I like that. That's a good fit. Like, I'm going to differentiate. If I make a call to the president and he'll see me, then that's my niche. I want to limit it. That's who I want to talk to. You can do it that way. Anybody else have any good niches that they have for themselves? How about you guys? I'm just anywhere.
Training.
Okay, training's good. Okay, so we asked businesses what are your top ones, and those are what they said. Now the other thing too is some of those messages resonate a little bit better with some of these other, like the 1 to 14 and the money under the water line, that might be a good message for a chief financial officer. ROI things might be good for a chief financial officer and a marketing officer and a CEO. So some of those things that we've talked about selling might be more specific to a certain position. The vertical markets, here's what people noted when we asked them what vertical markets they're in. And again, all the big guys are going to be in healthcare, standard register, stuff like that. So maybe I don't want to go there, or maybe I want to be really good at 10-person doctor practices.